I'm talking today about Agamemnon by Aiskhylos. Again. So I already reviewed this play a couple months ago when I read it out of the Classical Tragedy Greek and Roman collection. But I've gotten a second collection of Greek plays out of the library. This is Anne Carson, which contains Agamemnon by Aiskhylos, Electra by Sophocles, and Orestes by Euripides. The second two plays in this collection I have not read. So the first play, Agamemnon by Aiskhylos, is the only play that overlaps between these two collections. Now, I've just talked about this same play 2 months ago, and I'm not entirely sure I'm going to have anything intelligent to say about it in this video that I didn't say about it in the last video. But I'm going to give it a try. One of the rules I have for this channel is that I review everything I read, and that includes rereads. Now, ordinarily, a reread would be like a few years after you read something for the first time, not a couple months. But because I want to read through the second collection, while I'm still in the classical Greek drama mode, I've decided I'm going to reread Agamemnon by Aiskhylos because it's in this collection. So, yeah, that's my disclaimer. If you want to skip this video, I'm gonna do my best to talk through this again, but this could just be largely a repeat of what I said in the previous video. All my videos are unscripted. Almost all of my videos are unscripted, so you never know. But let's see how this goes. So it is interesting just to compare translations and notice how different it can be. So maybe just the opening lines will suffice to illustrate this. So from this collection, the Anne Carson collection, the opening lines are spoken by the Watchman, who says, "Gods, free me from this grind. It's 1 long year I'm lying here watching, waiting, propped on the roof of Aiskhylos, chin on my paws like a dog. I've peered at the congregation of the nightly stars, bright, powerful creatures blazing in air, the ones that bring summer, the ones that bring winter, the ones that die out, the ones that rise up. And I watch for this sign of a torch." All right, now let's compare this to the other translation just to see how different two translations can be. They can be very different, huh? So here the Watchman says, "No end to it all. Through all year I've muttered my pleas to the gods, for a long groped for end. Wish it were over, this waiting, this watching. 12 weary months, night in and night out, crouching and peering, head down like a bloodhound, paws propping muzzle, up here on the palace belonging the blood clan of Atreus, Agamemnon, Menelaus, bloodkin, our clan chiefs. I've been staring so long I know the stars backwards, the chief of the star clans, king stars, controllers, those that dispense us the cold snaps and dog days." Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly different wording, isn't it? I mean, I guess that just goes to show that when you translate something, you can come up with very, very different words. I mean, the general meaning, I guess, is more or less the same. But yeah, that's what it was like reading this different translation. The general meaning was still there, but the words were completely different. Anne Carson's translation here is, I don't know if you could tell from that brief excerpt I read, but even though the lines of the play look like verse, when you read it through, it reads in prose. And I guess for that reason, maybe, I found that it was a lot easier for me to pay attention to than the other version. from classical tragedy, Greek and Roman. I forget the name of that translator. Sorry, it's over here. Tony Harrison. And, you know, this is probably just a personal thing. I find it easier to concentrate when I'm reading prose and when I'm reading poetry. Your mileage may vary. But during the long sections with the chorus speaking, my mind would sometimes have trouble focusing in Tony Harrison's version. In this version, I felt like I was able to focus and absorb everything very well. So I guess the long and short of it is I found Anne Carson's version more readable. It doesn't have the same rhythm or rhymes. So Tony Harrison's version, when there were, especially when there was a dialogue between a character and a chorus, it would all be in rhythmic rhyming couplets. So this dialogue here between the messenger and the chorus was all in rhymes. And you can see that there's no rhymes here. Glad to meet you, messenger of the army. Glad indeed. If the gods want me to die, I'm ready now. Did longing for your home afflict you there? Oh yes, so that my eyes were filled with tears. A sweet affliction then. How so? The feeling was reciprocal. You mean you longed for the army? Etc. Again, in the other translations, this was all in rhymes. Part of me kind of missed the rhymes. I wanted to feel the rhythm of that dialogue. But part of me also felt like it made the dialogue seem much more understandable, much more modern. There wasn't kind of any forced rhymes in there or anything like that. So the play, I'm not going to go into the background of Agamemnon and the Trojan War. I think I did that in my previous review of Agamemnon. So because I've already done that once, I'll just go through the different actions in the play. Starts with the watchman announcing Troy has fallen. And then Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife, shows up to give speeches about how she's waiting for her husband to return. And then Agamemnon himself shows up. A messenger also shows up to announce that Troy has indeed fallen and that the heroes are returning home, although he does mention that most of the heroes met with disaster on the way home, according to the Greek legend. But then Agamemnon and Cassandra themselves show up. Agamemnon's wife gives a long speech about how much she has longed for She gives a long speech about how much she has longed for his return. She's really playing on the part of the faithful wife. Of course, the audience knows that, because the audience knows the story already, the audience knows that she's going to plot to kill him. But she says all the right things. Although Agamemnon is not impressed. He said, offspring of Leda, guard of my house, you have made a speech to match my absence. Long. So he feels like her speech is too long and too full of praise. And then there's an argument over whether or not to walk on a red carpet. One of the interesting notes that Anne Carson gives in her notes from the translator is apparently nobody really knows what this red carpet is supposed to represent. It's something red, but is it, let's see, how does she put it? In her introduction here, she, notes that, sorry, it's here somewhere. This is the problem with flipping back and forth when you haven't marked your spots. It's something red, but it's unclear if it's some sort of a carpet or red clothing or some sort of silk or something like that. But Agamemnon does not want to walk on it. He feels that it is an unnecessary luxury and is going to tempt the gods to do that. Clytemnestra really wants him to walk on it. So they argue back and forth for a while, and then Agamemnon gives in and walks on it. Anne Carson, in her introduction, and I'm not going to go back and try and find the quote this time, but she makes the point that there's some symbolism going on here, since Agamemnon is going to be killed eventually with a dragnet. So the idea of walking on a red carpet, the red symbolizing blood, or she makes the point that the red could symbolize any number of things. And then Cassandra. Now Cassandra is the daughter of one of Priam's daughters, who is now brought to Agamemnon's house as a slave. She was given to Agamemnon as one of the spoils of war. She is a priestess of Apollo, who was cursed by Apollo to have the gift of foretelling the future, but the curse that no one would ever believe what she said. Anne Carson, in her introduction, said that Cassandra was very difficult for her to translate. I guess the Greek didn't make a lot of sense often in the original Greek, or it was kind of unclear. Cassandra seemed to be shouting out a lot of random things. When I heard that, I did remember that in Tony Harrison's version, I was confused for a long time with Cassandra's speeches as well. Although part of the reason I was confused with Cassandra's speeches is it turns out I didn't know this story as well as I thought I did. I thought I knew the story about Agamemnon and his house, but I didn't know the legend about Agamemnon's father, Atreus, who had served... Atreus had brought down the curse on this house by serving his brother's children to his brother. So there's a rather sick story where Atreus, Agamemnon's father, killed the children of his brother and cooked them up and served them to his brother as food. And so that's what Cassandra, she starts yelling out random things, but eventually the chorus realizes that she is talking about that legend. But at the same time, she's also prophesying her own doom, how she and Agamemnon are going to be shortly killed by Clytemnestra. Now, Anne Carson, again, I guess I'm borrowing very heavily from her introduction here because this is her translation. She makes the point that Agamemnon does not want to walk on the red carpet, but after some back and forth with Clytemnestra, he gives in, and Clytemnestra wins that argument. Clytemnestra cannot win the same argument with Cassandra, though, because Cassandra just stands mute and doesn't respond. And finally, Clytemnestra says, I'll not be insulted further, and then walks away. But even though Cassandra has won that encounter, Cassandra knows she's going to die. And so after getting all the prophecies out of the way and kind of screaming out all these images, then Cassandra has to tell the chorus, I guess the chorus is everyone's confidant in Greek drama, that she is going on her way to die, that she knows there's no way for her to avoid it, and wants them to remember her death. So it's a rather sad scene there when Cassandra is going to her death. And then there's the sound of them both being struck. The chorus is wondering what to do. And then it reveals the dead bodies of Agamemnon and Cassandra with Clytemnestra standing over them. Now, Clytemnestra is guilty of killing her husband and killing Cassandra, but nobody cares about Cassandra at this point. The chorus has completely forgotten her. But they're blaming her for the death of Agamemnon. And Clytemnestra gives some really good speeches to justify why this makes sense to her. And it comes out really well in Anne Carson's translation. Some of these speeches, I think, come out really powerful. She says, "Oh, now you pull out your code of justice. Call me accursed, demand my exile. What about them? What about him? This man who, without a second thought, as if it were a goat dying, sacrificed his own child. My most beloved, my birth pain, my own. He had flocks of animals to charm the winds of Thrace. Isn't it this man you should have sent into exile to pay for that polluted deed? Instead, you pass judgment on me? Well, I warn you, threaten me all you like, and yes, if you crush me, you'll be giving the orders. But if some god ordains the opposite, however late, old men, I'll teach you your place." There's a back and forth with the chorus, and then Clytemnestra's lover, how do you pronounce this? Aiskhylos shows up, who is the son of Thyestes, who's the guy who was made to eat his own children by Agamemnon's father Atreus. So again, he retells that story and why this is revenge for him on Agamemnon's father. And I believe this must be Agamemnon's cousin, right? Because these two were brothers here. And then he gets into an argument with the chorus, which looks like he's going to order in the guards to kill the chorus until Clytemnestra tells him to stop. And says, essentially enough blood has been shed. And so they are ruling now. The chorus is bringing up the possibility that Orestes will come back. But Aiskhylos and Clytemnestra are not worried about that. And that is the end of this play. I found this very readable in this translation. I enjoyed it. This was a very pleasant read. Some parts of it came through very powerfully. I'm sorry. It's a Greek tragedy, so I don't know if pleasant read is the best way to describe it. But it was very, very easy to read. Very compelling reading. It's not something I had to force myself to read it. It's something where the pages turned quite naturally. You know what I mean. Okay, I'm sorry if I didn't say anything of note in this video that I didn't say in the previous video, but here we are. Next up is Electra by Sophocles, which I have not read yet. So this will be a new play for me and should hopefully generate all new things to say.